Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us. Welcome to episode 2 of Action Items, where we are talking about actionable steps you can take to improve your supply chain and to embark on your digital transformation journey, focusing with your supply chain and product operations. So today we are going to be joined by a special guest that I consider a dear friend of mine. So I'm very excited to have Sneha with us today. So we are going to be talking about firefighting and how we can stop it. It seems like since I made my career change into supply chain since 2016, 2017, we've been having the same conversations about firefighting. And today we are going to talk about how to stop it and some actionable steps, again, that you can take starting right away to start to find solutions. So this episode is brought to you by New Gen Architects. And we are a new generation of solution and business architects bridging the gap between business and technology to help companies achieve successful supply chain transformation. As a thought partner and facilitator, the NGA team sets up clients with a secure foundation and a layer of ownership as they embark on technology-driven transformation journeys. From tool selection to project management and business transformation road mapping, the NGA team is made up of industry change makers whose goal is to support scalable and efficient supply chain transformation. Visit newgenarchitects.com for more information and to schedule a discovery session with a member of the team. So let's go ahead and welcome Sneha.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me today, Dyci. Super excited.
Yes, thank you for joining. I know it's very early in California, so I appreciate the time. I appreciate you being here. I know you've got the boys. How are they?
This is doing
Keeping you
super
busy?
good. Of course, yeah, of course, on my toes. Never a dull moment with them. I'm definitely hurting my knees by running after them, but super nice. All good. A good start to the new year with lots of energy, and I hope everyone has the same
That's
start to
good.
the new year too.
That's good. Thank you. Good morning to everyone joining. Rob, you're also up early from San Diego. Thank you. Welcome, Jason, Diana. So, Sneha, give everyone a little bit of a background from your experience in supply chain, manufacturing, and how you got to where you are in your career today.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'll start from the start when I actually started. So I am an electronics engineer. So I started my career as an engineer and slowly made my path to supply chain and just been in love with supply chain ever after that. So started with home automation companies, did a lot of stuff in quality and making sure our QMS systems are in place and automation. How do you improve, reduce redundancy and manual efforts? And then slowly, like when I started working with a lot of new products, I did a lot of engagement with suppliers and vendors and understanding the full upstream and downstream breadth of supply chain. So from actually getting your suppliers on board to working with them on the design to actually what's your inventory going to look like, how's your forecasting going to look like, what's your demand planning, and then the big the meat of it, which is actually manufacturing it on time with lesser issues and being able to deliver to our customers, of course meeting their service levels and managing the logistics piece of it. So I would say it's been a great run understanding the full length and breadth of supply chain. And it's funny why I say that. Like when I was managing inventory, I was in a constant battle with the ops team that, hey, you never have enough inventory for me to manage my orders, so we are late. And then I actually went to the other side of the table and tried to then and like so then the perspective came so much alive for me because I was living and breathing it every day being on the floor with my team, not being able to ship orders out because of XYZ reasons. We'll go over all of that, understanding the root cause. So it's so important that we come together as a team, have shared metrics, goals. Like as an inventory manager, just managing inventory cannot be a goal. Managing your customer service levels has to be a goal. Like it has to be a company goal altogether. So bringing all of that together, and being having been in those roles, just gave me a better perspective of how I should be
That's
looking at, and measures and mechanisms to put in place.
right. That's really interesting. I like the part of your story where you were on the inventory side and then you went to the op side, and it was eye opening. And I think
Absolutely.
that a lot of that um, is very important for us as supply chain professionals, and that is a big part of where I personally think a lot of the breakdown is that people know what's happening in their individual silo, but they don't know what's happening in other areas of the business. And there is not clear visibility to how all of those are connected. So, from your experience, and we have an article from 2016 that basically says, the most common production planning and scheduling headaches. And it's from 2016, but we're in 2022. And it seems like, we're dealing with some of the same issues, disparate and outdated spreadsheets, maxed out resources, the disconnected plant floor. Tell us some stories about some of your experience. Do you think that there is one thing that we can kind of nail down as the root cause of why we find ourselves always firefighting and always, putting out these individual solutions as opposed to, or these individual problems as opposed to really finding solutions? So is it the spreadsheets? Is it the resource capacity? Is it the disconnected plant floor? Or does everything come together for the perfect storm?
You actually summed it up pretty well, but I have to, like, I would definitely like to start with, most of the times what I have seen, and especially with the career in manufacturing, what I have seen is what we have not done is actually taken the time, like every time something breaks down on our production shop floor, we haven't taken the time to stop, do our five whys, do our RCA, and actually understand what the root cause is. So we do a lot of containment actions and then move on, because end of the day what we are trying to do is get through the day, get your orders out, and you did what you could. And I think this has been said before a lot too, like hope is not a strategy. Like that's not how you should be running your production floor. But it's not surprising, like don't be surprised when I say that many of the shop floors are actually very um, very less strategic in terms of how they are managing their day to day, and pretty much doing the band-aid for immediate actions and for
Reactive and
immediate fires,
tactical.
and then move on. Okay, what's the next order? Let's get it done. And the next week the same root cause comes up again, and you do a band-aid again and you move on. But it's so important to do your five whys. So let me give you an example, like very simple. Why didn't, like when you're doing your morning Gemba walk, and for I have to say that, do not, I'll say that like multiple times during the show today, do not underestimate the value of Gemba walks, whether it's physical, whether it's virtual. Because I'm saying virtual a lot now because we are in COVID times, we have a lot of contract manufacturers. Do not underestimate the value. You When you are actually going through your KPIs, you actually have to understand, hey, why did we miss the order? Because we didn't have the components. Why didn't you have the components? Because we didn't order it on time. Why didn't you order it on time? Because our MRP didn't tell us to. Oh, why did that happen? Because there was no routing. So boom, you got it. You don't have your routings in place. And so go, while you go and fix your routing for that particular end product, go ahead and do a full cleanup of your system for all the end products for your product family. Have a charter, have a plan in place to do this on a quarterly basis. Hire an intern. You don't have to do everything yourselves. Like, do have processes to make things happen. Like, there's so many things that impact production shop floor operations, that it's any single breakdown in any other place can actually impact it. So if production of some other work center did not report scrap on time, your inventory is wrong. Your inventory is wrong. You don't have enough parts for something else, for some of other customers. So it's so important. Like I spoke a lot, but pretty much important to stop, understand your why, go get down 5 7 whys, whatever that is, and fix it. And then, of course, like you touched upon this, especially this article as it talks about, a lot of us are actually using manual approaches. Spreadsheets, it's a very traditional approach to manage, and it's why people do that, because it's easy to implement with less learning, to get off the ground and hit the ground running. But what we do not understand, because ultimately, the job has to get done, the shop floor has to finish the orders, and that's what we are focusing on. But the problem is there's no maintenance. You think it might be low, cost effective, but it's not, because you're not looking into your hidden costs. I mean, you have the costs goes in maintaining, the cost that the opportunity cost that you might have totally missed because you're not looking at your demand history trends and all of that. You're not bringing, because it's not maintained, you have literally almost lost orders most of the times, and you're losing your customer trust. So these are the hidden costs that we never map out and never talk about. And that's why it's so important that we look at cloud-based systems that can actually get you there, bring all of these pieces together on a dashboard for you. And it's so important, critical now, if you, in COVID times, and most of us are sitting behind our screens, you are not on the floor all the time. So you would like that top, the view of what's going on there live. What are the issues? What's the pain point? What are those bursts? You need to know about it sooner and proactive enough to be able to not miss your orders. And so that's why it's so important that you move to that system and understand what's going on your on your phone. And I know about this tool, which is Ethers, and I think we can drop a link on the chat too. But if you go explore, what they have pretty much done is brought this whole master production scheduling for you right on your fingertips, on your iPad, on your mobile phone, or on your web page, where you can actually look into what's going on. Why didn't you make this order? Because you didn't have the raw materials. Okay, why didn't you make this order? Because, oh, the machine is down. So you need to have the visibility. Say if I am a VP operations and we will probably have hundred of sites to visit to, if there are some issues, I can actually be on the go, be mobile, and be able to bring and connect all of this together, and maybe make some phone calls and see what we can do to change it. So the article also pretty much puts it very articulate, like move towards, make that transition, and see how powerful it can be for your operations, and how much cost you actually will save in the process.
So you have a lot of good points, and I was taking notes. So because I wanted to make sure that I captured everything. It's so interesting. I do want to put a plug in for Sneha because as a consultant, a lot of our clients ask us, what are your thoughts about XYZ? Or what are some things that we can do, regarding manufacturing or co-manufacturing? There's a good question about how to manage everything that you just talked about if you have an external partner. What if you're not doing the production in-house? And a lot of times, I don't mind giving credit where credit is due. A lot of times my answers are from text messages from Sneha. So I get the questions from my client. I'm like, I'm not a manufacturing expert. I don't pretend to know everything. But I do like to think that I have a network of really intelligent, smart experts like you, Sneha. So
Thank you.
just in case anyone is ever wondering, I am normally a proxy for Sneha's words when it comes to manufacturing. So there are a couple of things that I do want to unpack and get back to. So I definitely want to know more about Ether. But the 5 whys, that is something that I also learned, kind of very textbook, industrial engineering, process improvement. When you learn about check sheets and, the 80/20 rule, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't hear people do the 5 whys enough. It's the 1 why, sometimes 2, but
Mhm.
they definitely don't do, the 5 whys in the traditional sense of really going down and asking, okay, why is this happening? Why is this happening? But why is this happening? Till you get down to the root cause. Why do you think that is? Is it truly as time consuming as people think it is? Because again, going back to, I've got to get this order out, I've got to just put a band-aid quick and dirty fix on it. Does it really take that much more time to say, okay, but why is this happening, so that I'm not dealing with this issue tomorrow and next week and in 2 months?
No, absolutely. And I think it's the two things that I have seen, and there could be more, I never consider myself an expert, but um, what I've seen is sometimes people don't really understand if they have finished their whys. Like, going back to my example, they would be like, oh, we didn't have parts. They'll stop there. So inventory stock out was the reason, but that's not the reason, because you need to go far, like, after that. Like, why was there an inventory stock out? So you then go into that. So maybe ops will stop at that inventory stock out reason, because after inventory, oh, that's none of my problem. So then the inventory, maybe if that goes to the inventory team, and then they'll be like, oh, because there was a routing issue, so okay, that's. But then you could actually go further. Why was the routing incorrect? Do we have processes, strong processes in place that audits and make sure that our routings are changes? This is so important for industries with high mix and low volume, or maybe high volume high mix industries, and especially the ones that have like 4 5 6 7 layers of BOM, and you have sub assemblies, and you're outsourcing some of your operations within that process. It makes it so damn complex. And if you are
So it
not.
sounds like it sounds like a long process, but maybe it's not a long process. Maybe there are just a lot of steps. So maybe
Mhm.
these are questions that, and this is kind of I'm just spitballing here, brainstorming. I have no idea. This is definitely your world. But is it something that one person who is assigned ownership of figuring out all of the answers to the whys, do they follow that trail? Or is it a collaborative effort where you have to get everyone in the room, which can be painful?
Yes. And so, coming to the time consuming part, it could seem so, but if you had the right representation in the room, so then, say, for example, if you're managing your KPI, ops cannot be the only one doing that by themselves. Because if they are, they're already working in silos. You cannot work in silos when you're in operation. So you need representation. But as you said, it's time consuming. Again, we are talking meetings, more meetings, have more people come into the same room. But what can be actually done, that usually, like, some companies actually have some process improvement representation, wherein you have one, like, business system managers
Oh,
who
A
understand.
CIO, maybe a
Yes.
continuous improvement office,
Yes,
program
yes, and
management office.
yes,
Okay.
and their responsibility is to actually bring people, and you don't have to go there and have your associates, bring your associates away from your orders, but then you have your supervisors. So take some time to talk to them when you are doing, go on surprise Gemba walks, talk to your associates to in those work centers, understand what's happening. And a lot of issues will just crop up when you're just having these,
Organic
sidewalk
conversation.
conversation. Exactly. And it's so important. We don't do that enough. It can never, like, we don't do that enough, and we have to get to the habit of doing that enough. It's hard now. It's hard when you have your manufacturers at a separate continent altogether. But then that's why I say go for virtual Gembas, and then have other collaboration tools that you can work towards. It does take time, but then because of that time, you cannot let go of this activity. Just because it takes time, you cannot not do it. You have to do it, otherwise you'll run. It's like a vicious loop. You will be coming back to it. I promise you that root cause will come back again, and you will be in the same situation again.
Right. Quick good morning. Thanks for joining, Sarah, our Let's Talk Supply Chain queen.
Hey.
Mohammed, good morning. Ahmad, we've got some people joining from all over. So thanks for being with us here this morning for me. So one thing that I want to go back to, you talked about the Gimbal walks, and you talked about those organic conversations. So kind of going back to Diana's question, bringing those two together, how do you handle that when your production planning is outsourced, or when your production is outsourced, excuse me? How do you do that planning? That sounds like it adds another layer of complexity, because you can't just pop up.
That's I think contract, like, when you have outsourced suppliers or when you have contract manufacturers and totally different part of the world in different time zones, life is hard. It's very hard. And I will first start with, and I think DC, we have had this conversation before. um, if you want to contract your manufacturing, have some make sure that you have done enough exercising on capturing enough data to understand, did you really need that? Could you have done it something closer, or could you have done it in-house if you have a production facility? But of course, if you absolutely have to have contract manufacturers, then yeah, you go for it. But as your business grows, it's actually impossible to physically be there on the floor all the time, especially if you have outsourced manufacturers, and you cannot know what's going on at any given moment. And that's why I say that you need through and through visibility of the full system, from where your raw materials are to where that particular PO with the supplier is, how much inventory you have. If you have a make to stock manufacturing model, do you have enough in products to manage your e-commerce orders? What's your logistics status? Oh, all of that, like, cannot stop. It goes on and on. And so then, coming back to, I was talking about ethers, and that tool can come so handy, because now I am sitting here, I have two different sites, manufacturing site at two different parts of the world. I can actually see what's going on live on the production floor, hour by hour, and actually have a list of the orders, filter by my favorite customer, and see, hey, what's going on. There was a hot order that I was waiting for that to happen. So I know, oh my God, oh, my materials is out of stock. Okay, so then what happened? And, like, now that I have the live view, I can get updates instantly, instead of actually having a meeting and waiting for someone to come and tell me, oh, sorry, I'm, end of the day, sorry, this order didn't go out because XYZ reasons. You want to be more proactive and more closely tied to live data, to be able to tap into these issues sooner, and maybe see if you could have taken any action to save that particular order. um, so
So
that's
does
one.
so does
Mhm.
Ether bring in the data from this data and information from our co-manufacturers also?
Yes,
So
so
if I have
it is.
different co-manufacturers as well as some in-house production, I have this tool that allows me to look at everything in one place.
Yes. And so, because it's managing your manufacturing, and it could be done, like, say you have three sites, you can get view of all the sites live there. And how they pull the data, it could be different. You might have an ERP at your supplier's place that they are tapping the data from, or you could just have it standalone, maybe bringing your separate Excel sheets data together, so they can actually customize it for your needs too. But I
That
but
sounds very time consuming and expensive. When time consuming in terms of, actually getting it implemented and using it. Is it a long implementation time for a tool like that? Is this $100,000 tool, or is this something that, even small manufacturers and small companies can take advantage of?
Actually the best part of the tool here is the onboarding time, which could be months and months when it comes to bigger large scale ERP systems. And also the tool being inexpensive. The onboarding time can actually be anywhere from actually 3 weeks to, say, about, I would say, 10 weeks. That they say 10 weeks, mostly because if they are customizing it, there's also a project management piece. And, say, if you have a waterfall model of how you manage your projects, they will actually customize it for you. So that will take time, because there's a lot of brainstorming and things like that. But they literally have a scheduling model. You can actually go on their websites and probably request for a free demo, or maybe able to use it. Like, literally, you take the system and then put it on your shop floor. And if you have an ERP, it's an add-on. So you pull data, you just have to share that. If you don't have any ERP, it might take a little longer, say about 6 weeks. So say at least, standardizing what wherever you're getting the data from, so that can all pull together to one dashboard. So the onboarding time is key here. Since it's not an ERP system, it's not going to take you months and months to ramp up.
Right.
And that's what you need today, right? You need pace, you need to hit the ground running. And so that's why I definitely want to talk about it. And it's very, very it's a SaaS tool, it's a cloud offering. It's super, super inexpensive. It's an inexpensive tool, especially built for small and mid-tier companies who really cannot spend money on all the fancy big ERP systems to be installed. And maybe they don't even need to because of the
Mhm.
volume. You just need a small basic tool to manage your production floor and see if you can get some cost savings that can help improve your margins.
Right. And I love that, because if we talk about those disparate and outdated spreadsheets and how to get out of, that world, from the time that I've been in technology implementations for supply chain, it's always been, these tools that could take years to actually implement. Because if you have a large network, these are enterprise companies, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in license fees annually. It's millions of dollars in implementation fees. And that obviously is a cost, and it's a time horizon
Investment.
that the small and medium businesses can't absorb that. They can't handle that. There's no resource capacity for that. But there still has to be some solution to get out of the spreadsheets. And I like Ether. I like a lot of other tools. I've been spending a lot of my time just sitting down and talking with and getting demos from a lot of these startup tools, whether it be for distribution or logistics or
Mm.
warehousing, tools that can replace these outdated archaic TMS systems and WMS systems. And I really encourage people to look at those tools. I do have clients that tell me, no, I don't want to start up. You never know what's going to happen with them. And it's a valid concern. But there are a lot of startups that do have very good tools, and they have really good functionality. That implementation time, like you said, is very quick. So time to value is very quick, and the ROI that you get from it. You talked about the hidden costs, and I think this is a good segue into that, because you can't just look at it to say, oh, it's going to be X dollars a month. So now we are spending this money, and you have to look at it from the value it's going to bring, or even the other costs that it's going to reduce. So I have never seen a company that I've worked with. Of course, I'm one person. I haven't worked with the millions of companies there are in the world, but I've never seen a company say, how much time did we spend fixing that problem last week? How much time did we spend fixing the same problem 2 weeks ago? And taking those hours, taking the people involved, what is their hourly rate, and determining how much time and how many dollars did you actually spend doing the firefighting? And then how much time and money would you have saved had you focused on finding a solution instead of just fixing the problem to get that order out?
Absolutely, absolutely. You nailed it. We never map those hours. We never go into the depth of how much time you actually spend in maintaining those spreadsheets, maintaining, having those conversations, bringing all those people in meetings after meetings to get to the root cause and probably fix it, and then again face it. And so it's important that you use some of these digital tools. Look for them, try it. There's so many free tools out there, it wouldn't cost you a thing. Try it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, at least you tried something new. And there's so many collaboration tools also that can make you super proactive and bring your notifications and reminders and all of that together, so you can focus on the things that are needed to be focused on, instead of actually constantly exercising your brain. Oh, I had to do this, I missed that. And you're reactively fixing and putting out fires.
I like the collaboration tools piece. So let's talk about that a little bit, because when we talk about collaboration and communication, a lot of people think, oh yeah, we had a meeting. Let's pile the calendar up with meetings and we talk about it and we are collaborating. But how do we make sure that we're not just unnecess- unnecessarily piling on meetings where the conversations don't actually go anywhere? It sounds like you have used tools, or that you use tools to where you say, okay, how do we actually action that? How do we make sure that, okay, even if we sat in this room and we figured out what the why is, how do we
Mhm.
fix that why, as opposed to just, yes, we found the why, that's great, but maybe the solution is a little bit more
Complex.
painful and complex.
Mhm.
So how do we action that and continue that collaboration with some of those tools? Which ones have you used, that you like?
Yeah, absolutely. Would share a little, but these are the times, right? I've been hearing about collaborative overload. And I was reading an article and it said that literally like 25 to 20, like 35% of the value added meetings, collaborative meetings, actually comes from just 3 to 5% of your employees. So that gives us an idea of how many meetings we are having. And because of COVID especially, that conversation that I could have had by just standing up from my desk and talking to my peer is now a meeting. And then from these meetings comes actions. And then by the time the day ends, there's no time for you to complete those actions because you were in meetings all day. So that becomes your homework, which is super frustrating. And I think we all are living in that era. What the tools that I have used in the past, many of them, is to make sure that we have some processes and all the teams are using, like, most of my cross-functional teams are using the same tool. So there are companies where you will see that teams are using different tools, and there you are like it's madness. Everyone is using a different tool, and everyone is an
I've
expert
I've
there,
lived
and
that life, actually. I've lived that
and
life. I've been on Asana, but then the other team is on Jira, and then another team is using spreadsheets, to track their action items. And you think, why aren't we all just using the same thing? Isn't it easier if we
exactly.
all use the same thing?
And isn't it more cost effective for everyone? Like, if you're paying for those licenses, if they are not free tools, like you just wasted so much money and people don't even want to change because, of course, everyone is fighting for their own tool. And so, please bring all your teams, whoever, like at least, bring your whole supply chain, ops team, and whatever cross functional team you're working with on
To
the
one
same
tool.
tool. And so that tool could be, if you're managing your projects, could be as simple as Asana or Trello, or, I've used Master Tasks for some of my other roles. I've used ClickUp, and these are like free tools out there. You are quick in meetings. I try to also make sure that your meetings become working meetings. So you're not just, blabbering and taking homeworks. You're actually making actions, assigning it, or maybe actually getting things done. And
I
have your
like that.
team.
I'm going to cut you off to make sure that everyone took that away. Meetings don't have to just be conversations. And we
Yes.
also do that, internally with our teams. We have working sessions.
Mhm.
So if it is a meeting and we're having a conversation about it, if it makes sense to just get into it and at least start it, we actually have working sessions, because it is it's a very supply chain is a people industry. There are so many different people, there are so many different teams. So the collaboration of, oh yeah, I sent an email, or yes, I communicated that. Having a working session really
Yes,
takes it to the next level. And I
absolutely.
don't see enough people do
Doing
working
that.
sessions.
You are right. Like, don't just keep blabbering. If it can be done, just get it done out of your day, out of your way, and your day. And you actually don't get homeworks. Nobody likes homeworks. Even kids don't. My kids don't. So it's so important. And also do not underestimate the power of having an agenda and sticking to it. Like, many people don't come to don't have an zero agenda. They just come, okay, let's do some brainstorming. Even if it's a brainstorming session, please
What are
come
you
with an
brainstorming
agenda.
about? What
Yeah.
topics do you want to
What?
cover?
Yeah.
When you're getting to the end of the meeting, did we cover those topics? It helps you stay on track, and make
Yes.
sure that you don't go down a rabbit hole or you get,
Yes.
it's very easy, in our world, there are so many different tangents. It's very easy to say, oh, you're right, we should talk more about that. We should talk about what we came to talk about and nail that down, and then understand if we really do need to have another session. So let's get into the takeaways.
Mhm.
So our action items for episode 2, firefighting. Thanks so much, John and Dave, and you guys are having a great conversation. And Diana had a question about why firefighting just seems to be the status quo. And there, a lot of it is people, this is how we do things. People, for a variety of reasons, they don't want to challenge the status quo. Sneha, you mentioned even just something as simple as this is the tool I want. Then it's an ego thing. You know what I mean? Well, I want this tool for my team because I've used it in the past. So we've got to set egos aside. We've got to set aside, this is how we've always done things, because that's not the world. You know what I mean? If what you did 20 years ago was a completely different market, a completely different industry, a completely different workforce, completely different customer expectations. So at the end of the day, we always have to remember that the customer is what we're really looking to, we're looking to serve. So our first action item that I took away from this was quantify the time people are spending firefighting. Quantify that in hours and quantify that in dollars to understand how much money you're actually spending firefighting. And I think that when we feel things, it feels weird, but then when you see the numbers, it's really eye-opening. And that is what drives people to say, my goodness, if we're eating into margin. At the end of the day, your customer makes an order, the sales team wants to get a certain margin, the company wants to get a certain margin, but all of these additional costs, these hidden costs, eat into those profit margins. So at the end of the day, it directly affects the financials for the company. And I think that when we see those numbers, that's when people are really jarred into making some change. The other thing we talked about was to look for inexpensive production scheduling automation tools like Ether. So we talked a lot about Ether, and there are some inexpensive tools that we can look at that don't take months to implement, and they don't take hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain. Using PM software like MeisterTask or ClickUp to improve team collaboration and communication. That's key. And then looking for that solution-based resolution. So truly identifying the root causes of issues and not treating the symptoms. And there's a really good article that we read about, just a better way to put out supply chain fires. And that article focuses on a solution mindset. And, John mentioned talking to the people, understanding what the problem really is, and talking to people is what is going to help to understand what all of those 5 whys are. Why? Following it all the way down, upstream, downstream, like you mentioned, Sneha. And that is how we find the solution so that we're not having this problem tomorrow and the next week and the next week and the next week
Yeah.
again. And Nicole has put that article in the comments if anyone wants to take a look at it. It's very relevant. I love it. There are some additional steps and action items that you can take there. So we actually talked about quantifying your time. They mentioned analyzing where your time goes. considering the end-to-end supply chain affects upstream and downstream. And we talked about how, a lot of times people are in their silo. They don't know what's happening upstream. They don't know what's happening downstream. And when they don't have visibility to that entire, order to cash, procure to pay process, they don't know if what they're doing or what they're not doing is having a negative or a positive effect on the entire business. So, not only considering the end to end effects, but really sitting down with the team and mapping out the process. And not some, really, really extensive, going from, we call them level 1 to level 4 processes, because, you have a process and a sub process and a sub process and a
Oh,
sub process.
yes,
But even
absolutely.
just the high level, from the time someone makes an order until the time we get paid, and from the time we make an order from our vendors or suppliers until the time we pay them, who all is involved, and what are the steps. So you talked a lot about cross-functional KPIs. I like that this article also says set goals and KPIs that are cross-functional, not just
Yes,
operations, not
absolutely.
just inventory, not just demand forecasting, not just sales,
Yes,
but we have these cross-functional KPIs that push us to work together. Um,
yes.
and getting site and company buy-in. And that is, I think, probably very, very difficult. It's easier said than done, because everyone has their own priorities. Even just as individuals, people have their career priorities, they have their professional priorities as teams. And then when we have our external partners have their priorities. If you're co-manufacturing, if you have a 3PL, if you have, warehousing that's outsourced, it's
Oh,
very difficult to get everyone on the same page, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. And those are my thoughts. So we've got a couple minutes. Sneha, any parting thoughts for the audience?
and I definitely would like to touch, especially, with contract manufacturers. I never touched on the soft piece. There's so much more, like honestly, we could do shows after shows talking about this, but the soft piece of it, like many times I've seen that companies usually tend to, or maybe out of habit, tend to treat the, contract manufacturers as not part of your own business, even your suppliers. But it, them that mindset, that culture has to change, where you actually treat your suppliers or your contract manufacturers as an extension of your business, so you take them seriously. And it's not like you treat them like an outside entity and you're enforcing things. They have to be part of your system, so you are working to improve their life as much as you're trying to improve your current employees, working towards your employees benefits as well. So doing that exercise and actually making sure that they are part of your culture, and it's not just an outside entity. Visit more often, try to at least visit more often, so that will be important. And sometimes in meetings we just ask, hey, how are you? Don't do that for the sake of it. Like, have some meaning to it. Like, try, especially when you have suppliers sitting super far away, take some time sometimes to just personalize. Yes, I know it's time taking, but trust me, it goes a long way. If you have to work with that supplier for a longer term, take that time to at least understand and build relationship. Supplier relationships, your contract manufacturer relationships are the most important piece that you have to focus on and build over time, to make sure that they run your customers orders and business. They treat those orders as personally as you would like them to. And and um and no, I mean, seriously, I really want everyone to know out there that stop firefighting. It's not hard. Whatever I shared today are simple tips, nothing super strategic, nothing super C-suite level. Go ahead, take these
You haven't mentioned an
actions.
intern.
Yeah,
This isn't something that you need to bring in, to start. You don't have to run it up the chain. Bring in an
exactly.
intern, bring in someone who, is in it every day, and just ask them, why do you think that happened? Or, why don't you go on this gimbal walk with me?
Yes, yeah, it's just simple steps. We forget to take it, but please stop firefighting. Identify your root cause. Don't just take containment actions. Implement your long-term solutions. It's gonna go a long way, I promise you.
It will go a long way. So thank you so much, Sneha. Thanks everyone for joining. Next episode, we will be here March 11th, and look out for all of the information there. You can also go to letstalksupplychain.com or nugенtarchitects.com to sign up for reminders, and we will see you next month.